Hello. I hope the volume is okay because I know this has been a problem with a few of my recent videos. If the problem persists, I'm going to try my best to get some sort of speaker. Do give me feedback here about this issue. If the volume is really bad, let me know. But if it is audible, let me know that as well. If it's okay, it's important I know either way because I can't really tell myself whilst I'm uploading it. But I will try to get a speaker if the problem persists. Anyway, the issue I want to speak about here is something that really, really makes me angry. Um, Injustice always makes me angry. Human rights violations always make me angry. But this specific case highlights the political, let's say, the political ramifications. It's the case of Ali Mohammed Bakr al-Namir, who's now, I believe he's 21 now. But Saudi Arabia is going to behead him and then crucify him. The crucifixion will come after death, but nevertheless, it's barbaric, and I don't think there's any other way to describe it. Only in Saudi Arabia could such a savage, well, maybe Taliban or Afghanistan or a few other examples, but trust the Saudis to come up with such a sadistic form of execution. Here, the crucifixion aspect is designed to humiliate. Um, Officially, his crime is to have taken part in anti-government protests in 2011 when the Arabian Spring was going on. If you recall, Saudi Arabia kind of bribed their citizens out of that, so the protests in Saudi were more muted than in other countries. He was 17 when he took part in these protests. Now, since then, they've pinned a lot of so-called charges on him, including sedition, breaking allegiance to the king, rioting, using petrol bombs against security patrols, robbing a pharmacy, and more. The robbing the pharmacy bit, I very much doubt. Um, in terms of throwing petrol bombs at security forces, so on, what you need to remember is this is a brutal dictatorship. Um, if that's true, um, if this guy has hurt civilians or something like that, the sympathy would be less. But when he's standing up to a brutal dictatorship, I would call him a hero, quite frankly. Um, and just like Raif Badawi, he's a man who's brave enough to stand up to this regime, except he was a boy when he took part in these protests. Um, and basically, the case states that, or the case suggests that he was tortured in order to confess his so-called crimes. Um, Even if some of this is true, and I very much doubt that all of that is true, but even if some of it is true, certainly doesn't warrant execution. Um, but I want to talk here about our connections with the Saudis. David Cameron was pushed on this issue by Jon Snow, and you could tell he was trying to avoid the question. He would not answer directly why the United Kingdom helped Saudi Arabia get onto an influential UN human rights body, which it has to be the most ludicrous, insulting, bizarre setup you can imagine. Saudi Arabia being on the Human Rights Council. Unfortunately, it makes a mockery of the whole concept of human rights, having one of the world's very worst human rights abusers on an influential body. It's problematic because it's going to mean that if they have, Saudi Arabia is a powerful country. If they have a position in there, it's going to influence international decisions that are made as well. And that's very serious for human rights, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in many other states. Um, Cameron said this: "We have a relationship with Saudi Arabia, and if you want to know why, this was after he was pushed. I will tell you why. It is because we receive from them important intelligence and security information that keeps us safe. There was one occasion since I've been Prime Minister where a bomb that would have potentially blown up Britain was stopped because of intelligence we got from Saudi Arabia." Well, I don't know what he's referring to there. That sounds almost like a nuclear issue. Of course, it would be easier for me to say I'm not having anything to do with these people. It's all terribly difficult, etc., etc. For me, Britain's national security and our people's security come first. Okay, I understand David Cameron has a job to do as Prime Minister. The security of this nation must be his priority. I understand that. But there's another issue here which he isn't admitting, and that is that this poisonous Islamist death cult, Wahhabism, which inspires movements like Islamic State and Al Qaeda. Okay, there's different branches, but generally speaking, it comes down to Wahhabism. That is based in Saudi Arabia, and for a very long time, right up until 9/11, the Saudi regime openly fostered it. Only after 9/11 did they realize world spotlight was on them and they had to appear to be fighting terrorism. I don't trust the Saudis at all. Um, I think this is a barbaric regime. I think they're probably liars, and it sickens me to the core that Western countries like Britain and America continue to pander to them. This is not about being pro-Iran. I know Iran and Saudi Arabia don't have friendly relations to say the least, but it's not a case of being pro one or the other. At least it shouldn't be that way. Um, you know, I have to say this really sickens me. Um, and you get a lot of Saudi nationalists online making excuses for these sort of. It wears me down because I feel so helpless. I can sign Amnesty International petitions and so on, but I don't know what I can really do. I'd love a situation where a prime minister could really be radical and just cut us off. But the truth is, we probably are so deeply into this complex geopolitical situation of the Middle East that it would actually be difficult to just break off our ties with the Saudis. The problem is, whether it's the case or not, there is a very strong impression that Western countries pander to this regime. Not just Britain and America, France as well. Earlier this year, the Saudi king, I believe it was the new king, had an entire villa booked to himself, and there was a controversy over the fact there was a nudist beach nearby. My line of thinking is that I don't care how many skyscrapers they build, how many gleaming skyscrapers, or how good their medical care is. In terms of human freedom and in terms of human rights, Saudi Arabia is very near the bottom of the list. There's a few others that can rival it, North Korea, of course. Eritrea is pretty awful. Iran is still a long way to go. But Saudi Arabia, the thing that sickens me most about this is that we just seem spineless. Now, maybe Cameron is raising issues behind closed doors. Maybe he is. And I'm not in his shoes. I don't know, the complexities of what he has to address, but there's definitely a lot of things that raises questions. Why the hell did we help them get onto the UN human rights body? You know, as for the security threats, well, it could strongly be argued Saudi Arabia is responsible for them in the first place. So even if the Saudis are providing us with intelligence, they're largely responsible for fostering this ideology in the first place. I believe Saudi Arabia is a country with a massive amount of culpability for the problem of radical Islam. I believe that staunchly. And it just sickens me that we are so tied in with them. By the way, Saudi nationals who want to say this is a racist video or something, the issue here is not about Saudi people. It's not about the ethnicity of Arab people. So it's not an anti-Arab video. I just despise the regime in Riyadh. Simple as that. Despise it. Um, and it's a real contradiction between, like I say, these gleaming skyscrapers and primitive culture. I do believe it's primitive. I don't care if that's politically incorrect. I believe it's primitive to um, to use beheading as a form of execution in the year 2015. I believe it's primitive to use crucifixion. I believe it's primitive to lash a young man to within an inch of his life for no other reason than having an opinion. I believe it's primitive to treat women the way they treat them. Doesn't matter if Abdullah made some reforms, they weren't anywhere near enough. What you need to remember is this isn't an absolute monarchy. So whatever reforms he made was not enough. So he should, it's just not good enough. I get so angry when I think of this subject because it just doesn't need to be. And I think this does foster a lot of hatred and anger against Western countries. I would never ever make excuses for islamist ever. Um, but I do think Saudi Arabia's behavior in the region definitely fosters a lot of this. I mean, their ruthless war on Yemen has killed 2,500 civilians. It's got some coverage, but not as much coverage, and certainly not as much outrage as the Gaza conflict did last year. I don't see any difference. So there's a lot of hypocrisy among Arab states to protest about what Israel's doing, but turn a blind eye to what Saudi Arabia does. I mean, I don't believe that we're doing enough. Cameron saying this is all necessary. I don't believe that. I don't believe the arms deals that are killing Yemeni civilians is necessary. I don't see where the moral argument in that is. Um, I sure as hell don't see why it's necessary that we help them to get onto the human rights body. And like I say, I'm just a layman here. I don't know all the issues. You know, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We don't know what difficult choices leaders have to make. But I think this is our single gravest foreign policy mistake right now is our closeness to the Saudi regime. I stand by everything I said about Russia and Russian hypocrisy. So in terms of the world order of things, this isn't a case that I'm sort of saying that we're all wrong and the likes of Russia is entirely right. Russia's been backing the brutal Assad regime. Stand by what I said in the last video, but I don't think we help our own case by pandering. We can't criticize Russia for being close to the Assad regime when we are close to the Saudi regime. They're both as bad as each other. Um, I'll leave it there. There isn't really much more to say, but I just sickens me to be quite honest. And I dream of a day when we tell the Saudis to fuck off and they're on their own. I dream of that day because I regard the Saudi regime as absolutely barbaric.